Diamond B Sports presents Championship Drag Racing from the National Hot Rod Association. The NHRA Winston World Finals. Mike Dunn driving Roland Leong's Hawaiian Punch Special. One of the most severe engine explosions ever in championship drag racing as he nears the finish line at Orange County International Raceway. A puff of oil smoke coming out, and then the engine explosion that demolishes the car. Mike Dunn, encased in the roll cage, takes the ride of his life. The engine explosion blowing the fiberglass body to bits. As he crosses the finish line at a speed nearing 200 miles an hour, the car heads for the guardrail. The engine, no longer in the chassis, begins to roll out towards the front wheels. The fire starts again. Dunn hanging on for dear life at this point as the car, having a mind of its own, bouncing like a bucking horse in the shutdown area. The motor getting onto the front wheels, coming out, and now the car starting to turn over and continuing to do a series of snap rolls. Mike Dunn holding onto the steering wheel, trying to keep his arms inside that roll cage as the car finally bounces to a halt. The engine is gone, the body is gone, but Mike Dunn right inside the roll cage where he belongs. The doctors checking him over, and the word is Mike Dunn is A-OK. This is not the first time that Mike Dunn has had a crash in 1983. Steve Evans was there as this occurred at the Spring Nationals.
Earlier this very season, Dave, this is Mike Dunn. The throttle stuck, the engine explodes. The Hawaiian Punch car is on fire. There are no brakes. Watch closely. You'll see the right rear tire literally explode, taking off the back half of the body. This is one of the shortest tracks on the circuit, so there is an aircraft carrier-style catch net at the end of the racetrack. I was standing with our cameraman. I knew the net was there, but never dreamed it would stop a rampaging 140-mile-an-hour funny car. As you will see, it did. Incredible. Mike Dunn walks away as he did today here at Orange County International Raceway in qualifying. But for car owner Roland Leong, what an expensive season this has been. So Mike Dunn, fleet of foot, getting away from a car that potentially could still explode. It did not. Dunn is okay, and he's okay here, I emphasize again, Dave.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dave McClelland, along with Steve Evans, and we are at Orange County International Raceway in Irvine, California for the 1983 NHRA Winston World Finals, the final event on this championship drag racing season. And what a season it's been for this man, Gary Beck.
Gary Beck has already clinched the World Championship. Here 2 years ago, you see him win the event title. The World Championship that year narrowly escaped him. On this run, he set a world record. That is Dwight Salisbury, his opponent, going up in a ball of flame. Dwight was okay. Beck won the event title with a then world record of 5:54. He has reset the world record in qualifying here at the Winston World Finals at a landmark 5:39.
We're in the first round of competition, and one of the cars, the Bill Carter entry, is having problems getting started. The crew, headed by Jim Brissett, working on it. His competition's running.
His competition, Dave, is having no problems at all. Ray Stutz, a young fireman from Pomona, California. This is the car owner for Bill Carter, the actor Dan Haggerty. You may know him better as Grizzly Adams, and he is just fidgeting. And they've got the car started, Dave.
They are going to running, but Ray Stutz has already completed his burnout, and I am certain that the effort by Bill Carter will come immediately. That's right. Starter Buster Couch waves him to the starting line. pushes the crew out of the way and says, sorry about the burnout, guys, you got to race.
This could really hurt Bill Carter in the near lane. The lack of that smoky burnout over the starting line. Let's see, Ray Stutz in the far lane. It is Stutz away first cleanly by at least a car length. Ray Stutz driving away from Bill Carter, who still made a race out of it, even without the burnout. That is the ride of Ray Stutz's life. At 560, 238 miles an hour, the young fireman having his best day of championship drag racing.
And the incredible thing, Steve, is on the Grizzly Adams car, the Dan Haggerty entry with Bill Carter, he didn't have a burnout, and he still ran 577, never smoked a tire at over 230. Tire smoking it is on the burnout, though.
This is Richard Tharp, the flamboyant professional driver from Dallas, Texas. His competition here is Dwight Salisbury, who we just saw 2 years ago in the final round against Gary Beck in that ball of flame. Richard Tharp, the Cannell and Kilpatrick entry out of Killeen, Texas. No finer race car on the grounds.
Tharp has won one national event thus far this season and would love to add this Winston World Finals title to his credit. Driving the Whiting and Markley entry, R. Gaines Markley was the owner and crew chief a few years ago when Rob Bruins won the Winston World Champions title, but now Dwight Salisbury, one of the best drivers on the West Coast, at the wheel of the top fuel dragster of Whiting and Markley.
Richard Tharp, who took a vacation the 1982 season, came back in 83 and is one of the few drivers to have out-qualified Gary Beck anywhere along the circuit this year. Tharp in the near lane, Dwight Salisbury far lane. Salisbury, as he always is, out first, but Richard Tharp has the performance, and Richard Tharp drives around Salisbury for the win.
5:66 is elapsed time at over 238 miles an hour, a very creditable 5:75 elapsed time for Dwight Salisbury, and his speed closing fast at over 244 miles an hour.
The first lady of motorsports in the near lane, the bright pink Pioneer stereo car of Shirley Muldowney. And her competition will be a farmer from Central California, Danny Donnell.
And Danny Donnell just exploded the supercharger on the starting line. He pulls off to the right-hand side of the track up along the guardrail in case something may be leaking out of the car. He's trying to keep any liquids off the racing surface. But on his burnout, it was Danny Donnell exploding a supercharger. And he's been having trouble like this as of late for the last several races with the superchargers exploding.
Yeah, he sure has, Dave, and that's about a $2,500 explosion. Shirley Muldowney backing up after her burnout, concentrating on her son John as he brings her back on those hot, fresh tracks she herself laid down. Now, Shirley has the option of taking the easy, just idling it down the racetrack to save her equipment, but I will bet anything, Dave, she does not do that. She wants lane choice. The following round, the quicker car from the preceding round has lane choice, and Shirley would also like to check the racetrack. The three-time world champion wearing the number 1 on the wing, but she will have to give that to Gary Beck at the conclusion of this event. He comes in here already the world champ. Shirley Muldowney, round 1, with a gift race from Danny Donnell. Shirley Muldowney on a hard pass.
The elapsed time, 5.60, an excellent elapsed time. She qualified third in this field. Her speed over 244 miles an hour. Her qualifying time was a 5:56, so she's very close in competition. The Donnell team dejectedly looking over their supercharger as Shirley pulls off the track. Here we watch again as Danny Donnell comes out of the water area, which provides the chance for those tires to get spinning without using up a lot of strain on the engine.
Watch the supercharger. You see the fuel injector on top of the motor. It's bolted to the blower. There's a bit of a fire, and bang, out the back of the manifold comes the explosion. Probably, David, hung an intake valve.
Our next pair of cars, the engine's already lit, and this is Larry Miner, the car owner of Gary Beck's car. He is the number 2 qualifier in this field, right behind Gary Beck. So the Miner team is certainly making their presence felt here at the Winston World Finals. His competition, Gary Ormsby. He started on the national event trail about the middle of the season, has been very competitive, and Larry Miner's got his work cut out for him. Even though he's the number 2 qualifier, he's still got to beat Ormsby to advance in competition.
In his rookie season, Larry Miner won the Cajun Nationals mid-season in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, with the wheels in the air, but a little too much horsepower as Larry Miner. He smokes the tires, and the car dealer from Sacramento, California, Gary Ormsby, is victorious here in round 1.
We said he was competitive, 5.62 seconds at over 238 miles an hour. The tire smoke, the wheel stand, Larry Miner going out at a 5.92, a losing effort for the number 2 qualifier here at the Winston World Finals.
So Gary Ormsby, who's been racing for some 20 years, goes into round 2, and here is the man. the new world champion, Gary Beck, who owns the quickest 16 lap times ever recorded. We just saw the Team B car, his car owner, go out of action, so all of Larry Minor's hopes now rest on number 1 GB.
He is the number 1 qualifier with a record-setting 5.39 second elapsed time. Gary Ormsby advancing into round number 2. Gary Beck concentrating on the thought of defeating Denver Chutes. The Raisin Farmer teamed up with Mark Danicus. The car called the Raisin Express, wiping down those huge slicks, trying to get the most traction available. For Denver Chutes, he qualified in the number 9 spot with a 5.68, almost 3/10 of a second difference, and look at Gary Beck go.
Gone like a rifle shot is Gary Beck, and there it is. Low elapsed time of the first round, close to his record. It is a 5:43. At the fastest speed Gary Beck has ever recorded, a personal best of 257 miles an hour. Awesome.
You know what's incredible, Steve? Denver Chutes ran a 5.88, and he was back at least 5 car lengths or more behind at the finish line. That's got to be depressing.
Now here is a guy that gave Gary Beck a run for his money in this World Championship. He won 3 events in the '83 season. Joe Amato from Old Forge, Pennsylvania.
Joe qualified in the number 4 spot with a fine 5.59, and Amato is up against another man that has been in the thick of the chase, and that is Jody Smart. Jody had his qualifying problems here, only making it into the number 12 spot, but Jody Smart from San Antonio, Texas, is capable of beating any driver anytime.
Through consistency, Jody Smart came into this Winston World Finals number 2 in points, Joe Amato number 3. In fact, this season, Jody Smart finally won his first NHRA championship race after so many years of trying, the Mile High Nationals in Denver, Colorado.
Steve, he has been a bridesmaid on that winner's circle for so long, I guess he probably thought he was jinxed.
Jerry Amato straightening her hair on the starting line, you know. TV cameras are on.
Her husband, Joe Amato, moving up through the ranks, first with an alcohol dragster, now in the thick of the top fuel chase, Joe Amato and Jody Smart.
Jody Smart's car just did not launch quite hard enough. Joe Amato had the squirt right off the line, and the clock again hits a 5.60 at 249 miles an hour.
Steve, we're seeing times with consistencies in the 5:30s, 40s, and 50s, and even in the 60s that years ago were thought to be impossible to reach. Yep.
Our next pair will be this man, Rocky Epperly, and in the far lane will be the black gold car from Fort Worth, Texas, of Gene Snow, the crafty veteran who many call the father of the funny car when he was professionally racing, a world champion on a couple of occasions. Now races a top fuel dragster strictly for the fun of it.
Steve, we were talking about elapsed times and how quick these cars are racing, but the car in the near lane, Rocky Epperly, has got something to his credit when we talk about going fast.
You bet. He reset the national speed record, one that's held for a long time. It is now at 257 miles an hour by the Frank Taylor-owned Dago red car. And that's really amazing considering Rocky is a bit of a rookie, has not had that much experience, and it's only about the 3rd or 4th race period for the team. So the engine builder, Darrell Buell, can be very proud of the horsepower he's built. But Gene Snow, look out. He has got so much more experience than Rocky Epperly. Speed records are one thing. It's elapsed times and driving ability that wins drag races.
And the man that gets to the finish line first, and we'll know in just a few seconds whether it'll be Gene Snow or Rocky Epperly. Snow with a tremendous hole shot. And he holds on, but boy, did you see Epperly closing at the finish line. 5.98 for Snow off the pace, a 5.88 for Rocky Epperly.
So Gene Snow gives Rocky Epperly a driving lesson on the starting line. Had Rocky left with him, he'd have beat him by a good car length, no question about it.
Our next pair in top fuel first round, Connie Kalitta. The Kalitta Flying Services entry out of Ypsilanti, Michigan.
He will be up against in the far lane from Riverside, California, a fellow going into his 2nd season of professional drag racing, Shannon Stewart. Connie Kalitta was, I believe, the first to ever go 200 miles an hour, Dave, in official sanctioned competition.
Quite a few years ago, and that was a mark that a lot of people said you couldn't reach in a 1/4 mile standing start race, but look at them now. They're running over 257 miles an hour, and nobody knows where the end is.
Kalitta's Flying Service, the sponsor for Connie Kalitta. That's his own company. Kalitta, a very qualified jet pilot. They leave right together. Shannon Stewart in the far lane. Connie Kalitta near lane. One good drag race. It is a genuine upset. Shannon Stewart from Riverside, California at 571, 243 miles an hour. He looks over to see where Kalitta is on the racetrack, not wanting a collision at the turnoff. So Shannon Stewart's got to be mighty proud. That's his biggest win light to date. A capacity crowd here at Orange County International Raceway enjoying this first round of Top Fuel Eliminator competition.
And Steve, we're ready to move now into one of the most popular classes in all of championship drag racing, the nitro-powered Thunder of the fiberglass funny cars. The Budweiser King, Kenny Bernstein, as we pick up action in round number 1.
And Kenny's competition will be the 3-time world champion, the Schlitz Blue Max of Raymond Beetle from Dallas, Texas. The burnouts are maybe even more important for the funny cars. They've got to have traction. The engines are in front of the driver, further out on the chassis. They don't have quite the weight over the rear wheels. What a season it has been for Kenny Bernstein. He had a horrible start, then comes back to win the U.S. Nationals, the Big Bud Shootout, and $80,000 in one weekend. Raymond Beetle with the escape hatch up to let some cool air in and the smoke out.
The burnouts, a lot of people think, are just a waste of rubber, but they are not. The tires are actually designed to work when their temperatures are very hot, and the only way you can get them hot is to start them spinning and actually burn the rubber off of them, and here they go.
Kenny Bernstein was away first, but Bernstein suddenly having problems. Raymond Beetle at half track takes the advantage and wins it. Raymond Beetle in the Blue Max at 5.90, 243 miles an hour. Raymond Beetle goes into round number 2. Beetle was the 4th qualifier at 5.88. So it doesn't quite match that time, but has got some reasonable consistency going for him anyway.
Here's a man from the West Coast that has no major sponsorship other than his own. He races for the fun of it, and he is certainly one of the strongest racers going. That's Little John Lombardo. His competition is a known quantity. The Team Strange entry of Farconis Coil and Minnick. They call it the Rislone Chi-Town Hustler, with Frank Holley, the Winston World Champion, at the wheel.
You'll remember our telecast a year ago here at Orange County. It was Frank Holley, this man, the underdog, battling for the world title. He won it here in the final race of the year. He comes in already the world champion, as Little John Lombardo well knows. Frank Holley has clinched it on points already. The bonus money from Winston, some $40,000, is already his.
Little John Lombardo qualified number 6, Steve, at a 5.88. Holley off the pace a bit for him at a 5.95. So Little John's got the performance edge going into this first round. Can he use his considerable driving skills to get him a win? We'll see.
Frank Holley, early in the season, amassed those points on consistency. Everybody's running quicker now. It is Lombardo up in smoke. Holley has problems. Holley off the throttle and does not get back on the gas. For some unknown reason, Frank Holley lifted a bit as he got close to the center line. Had he got back on the throttle, he probably could have driven around Little John Lombardo, but he did not. Lombardo wins it at a very slow 7 flat, but it doesn't matter. Lombardo goes into round 2, and the newly crowned world champion is on the trailer. The Canadian Frank Holley is done for the day.
This racer, John Force, out of Southern California, has a multitude of sponsors. Der Wiener Schnitzel, Stop and Go Market, Mountain Dew, Jolly Rancher Candies. But John Force has become a force to be reckoned with. He is certainly one of the most competitive racers on the national event circuit today. His competition is Joe Pisano with Trip Shoemake at the wheel, a former Southern Nationals champion. Shoemake and Pisano teaming up for the '83 season.
In fact, it was Trip Shoemake who won the event title here 1 year ago, driving the Team B car of Billy Meyer. That is Larry Frazier, who has made the difference, John Force will tell you, in his effort. Frazier has wrenched this car to over 250 miles an hour this season. Force can now concentrate on driving and not worry about making the horsepower, because Frazier has plenty of it under the sleek hood of that Pontiac Trans Am. The far lane is Trip Shoemake. The near lane is John Force. First round of funny car action. They leave right together. John Force starting to pull ahead. John Force dominant here in this matchup at 580. 247 miles an hour. 580, 247 for John Force.
Force was the number 3 qualifier going into that race, Steve, at 578, and that's somewhat remarkable that the time in competition is that close to the qualifying time.
And coming to life, the engine of the number 1 qualifier, Don the Snake Perdome. The only man to ever win 4 funny car world titles. He qualified number 1 at a 574. Perdome told me earlier, Dave, that he just took all his fuel systems, all his combinations, put them in a bag, shook them up, poured one out, and it was either going to blow or go. It went.
It went good at a 574. But now the question is his longtime nemesis, and if you've been following the sport of drag racing for the past 2 decades, The name of the man in the far lane, Tom the Mongoose McEwen, brings back memories of all sorts of race cars. He is one of the more versatile drivers ever to grace a quarter-mile racetrack, and this matchup of the Snake versus the Mongoose goes back a good 20 years.
You bet it does. In fact, 18 years ago, Tom the Mongoose McEwen won the first race ever held here at Orange County International Raceway, and there's a good chance that this will be the last race ever held here, as the property has been deemed useful for commercial and industrial purposes. So McEwen would really like to win this one too, have both ends of that legend. Don Prudhomme. Tom McEwen is away first, but smokes the tires. McEwen used the Snake up on a starting line, but didn't have the clutch and tire combination. It is Prudhomme at 580, 245 miles an hour. Don Prudhomme, parachute out, slowing for the turn. He goes into round number 2.
Well, I'll tell you, it's going to make for a great second round with the performances of these cars here in round 1, with a 580 by Force and a 580 by Prudhomme. Let's see how the Chief Auto Parts 711 special of Billy Meyer from Waco, Texas fares in this first round of funny car competition.
Well, what a contrast you've got here. Billy Meyer with the epitome, the state-of-the-art in a funny car machine, up against mighty Mike Van Sant, which is probably the oldest active funny car in the country. And Van Sant really didn't qualify. He was the first alternate, but got in when another car had some problems.
And that was the Mike Dunn car, who qualified on the horrendous crash. And as you saw, Mike Van Sant made a move towards the center line. He had to lift, and that gave the win to Billy Meyer as he carried it through the quarter mile to a 5:96 elapsed time. Off the pace a bit, but he knew that he had the win, so he backed down to 229 miles an hour.
What a tribute, though, for Mighty Mike. A 610 at 227 miles an hour. If he hadn't lifted, he might have beat him.
Our next pair of cars, we find the Miller High Life Warrior of Hamby and Poldy. Dale Poldy, the driver, Mike Hamby, his partner. And this is one of those touring cars that goes anywhere a major race is. Covers the country from coast to coast and border to border. And Mike Hamby and Dale Poldy have been traveling this circuit for several years.
Well, the same thing could be said about the beautiful multi-hued green machine in the far lane. The Super Brute from Fabergé, Al Segrini. Segrini won the Cajun Nationals this year. The pre-stage lights are on. Segrini moves into stage. Poldy's in. The pro start.
Identical reaction times for both drivers, and a close race as they get to the finish line. Al Segrini pulls it out, a 587 at 244 miles an hour to a losing 593. Just a few hundredths of a second make the difference at the finish line. It was about a half a car length, and Al Segrini advances into round number 2.
And our next pair will find this man. Talk about veterans. He's been doing this for 25 years. Henry Harrison, originally from Arkansas, has been living in Southern California the last 10 or 15 years, bouncing to a stop. His opponent over in the far lane, Sherm Gunn, who builds race cars for a living. And this is the first time that Sherm in that far line has ever qualified for a national championship event. He was an alcohol racer for a lot of years, had alcohol in that tank, and there's a bit of a transition to nitromethane, and Sherm has finally made it work.
Steve, this is a brand new car for Sherm Gunn. In fact, its debut performance qualified him in this very tough field. But for Henry Harrison, it's just another mark in a long and checkered career. I think Henry Harrison has driven practically every type of drag racing vehicle known. I can remember him in Arkansas driving the fuel altereds, driving roadsters, driving anything, top fuel dragsters. Now at the wheel of the funny car.
It is Sherm Gunn away first. Sherm Gunn in the far lane, and it is Sherm Gunn. The first win light in his professional drag racing career. A good race, a 604 to a 610.
Our next pair of cars, the engines coming to life as the electric starters spin over the superchargers. That then spins the engine over, and as they throw the switch, the nitromethane fuel coming to life in our next pair. This is Gary Densham. He is a school teacher during the week, but a hardcore drag racer on the weekends. It was 2 years ago that Gary had an engine explosion in fire that literally burnt the funny car to the ground. But persevering as he does, Gary Densham put it back together, and within just a few short weeks, he was back racing again.
With the help of his industrial arts students here in Southern California, he did all that. His competition will be Denny Savage. For years, a rented driver, a driver for hire, and this is the first weekend he has ever driven this car, the custom-bodied special from Utica, New York, owned by Fred Castronova. And Denny's done a wonderful job. His young crew chief out in front is one of the youngest of the professional crew chiefs, Ronnie Swearingen, only about 23 years of age.
This was an all 5-second field in qualifying, and Denny Savage brought up the number 16 spot at a 5:96. And considering it's the first race for him in that car, a very creditable effort for the Utica, New York-based Custom Body Enterprises car.
Denny Savage in the far lane as Buster Couch sets him. In the near line, the black car of Gary Densham. Pre-stage both drivers. Densham the first to move in and stage. Savage is in, and Savage leaves first by 4/100ths of a second. Savage getting close to the center line. The escape hatch blowing out of Densham's car. It is Denny Savage and a ball of smoke at 6.18 to a quicker 6.15. So indeed there was a hole shot. 231 miles an hour as Carl Olson, one of the NHRA officials, wanders off with the escape hatch. He'll give it to Gary and he'll just plug it back in. A little bondo, it'll be all right.
Well, that concludes the first round of competition in Funny Car Eliminator. The car's heading back to the pits, and the crews will be doing their routine, which basically consists of disassembling the engine and then putting it all back together again, and all that transpires in roughly an hour. Here's top fuel.
Little gasoline being sprayed into the injector of Gene Snow to get that motor started. It was Snow who won on driving ability alone in round number 1 when he hole-shotted Rocky Epperly.
Snow, a veteran out of Fort Worth, Texas, has put his talents on the line as he comes up against Gary Ormsby. As we said earlier, Ormsby starting on the National Event Trail about the mid-season point here in 1983. Snow from Fort Worth, Texas, known as the Snowman.
Gentleman Gene, and he truly is that. Gary Ormsby, who struggled amateur drag racing for a number of years, now has a very successful Toyota dealership in Northern California and can well afford to race. In front of him, the red shirt, a very talented crew chief. That is Lee Beard out of Colorado, now wrenching for Gary Ormsby. And Ormsby served notice back in August, winning the popular hot rodding championship at Martin, Michigan, that he was a force to be reckoned with. Gene Snow, on again, off again. He's either right at the top of the field or struggling at the back. They experiment a lot. Snow no longer has any sponsors. He has to please just himself, and he has a good time doing it.
Steve, it looks like they've got some trouble with Gary Ormsby's car, and it appears the tire has gone flat. The right rear slick has got a lot of wrinkles in it that shouldn't be there.
And here from Shirley Muldowney's crew comes an air can to try to get it pumped up, but they're not going to be able to get it done in time. And Gene Snow waltzes through the second round and into the semifinals at a 5:87, 213 miles an hour. Gary Ormsby plunks it in reverse and backs it into the staging lanes with that right rear tire good and flat.
And that's a tough break for Ormsby, but that's one of those things that you just can't predict. I mean, you can put an engine together and you know there's some problems maybe, but a tire going flat, hard to believe. Shirley Muldowney standing on the throttle as she comes out of the burnout area, those huge slicks just spinning and smoking, getting them very hot. It was 1 year ago at the same racetrack that Shirley Muldowney annexed her third Winston World Championship title. Earlier today, Steve had a chance to talk with Shirley about her season this year.
Yes, we lost it this year, and we lost it to a good car, somebody that really earned it. So we'll try to regroup and come back next year. Gary Beck did a wonderful thing for us. He really got top fuel out of a little bit of a rut. And what he did was set a pace that's going to be awfully hard for a lot of people to follow. We think we can catch up. And that's what we did, play catch up all year. But next year, it'll be a different year, hopefully, for us.
Well, let's hope at the end of next year that this wing goes back on.
Yeah, we'll just take it off the wall, put it back on the car.
The big number 1, residing at least for this race on the wing of Shirley Muldowney, the premier woman driver in all of motorsports. Her crew chief, Ron Tobler, her son, John, and their crew helping to push the car back. Shannon Stewart, her competition. Stewart, an up-and-coming driver, his second year on the season out of Riverside, California, qualified well, defeated in an upset win Connie Kalitta in the first round. The burnouts are over, both cars approaching the starting line. It's Shirley Muldowney in the near lane, Shannon Stewart in the far lane. A lot of concentration needed on the Christmas tree and on the starting procedure for these cars, because an advantage gained at the starting line is very difficult to overcome at the finish. A green light start for both drivers, and Shirley Muldowney pulling ahead in the middle of the course, and she wins it, and Shannon Stewart ends up in the lane right behind her. Apparently unable to keep the car in his own lane, he crosses behind Shirley Muldowney, but she was way ahead with a fine 5.65 second elapsed time, a speed of over 241 miles an hour, and in crossing over the lane, Shannon Stewart ran over the timing lights in the middle of the track. NHRA officials C.J. Hart and Jim Van Dyke replacing the lights in the center of the track, Shirley getting out of her car. Earlier, we had an opportunity to talk to Gary Beck about his strategy.
If you had seen Shirley Muldowney's run just prior to, she hazed the tires off the starting line. We're going to move over to the right about 18 inches and look for a little better spot. So actually, this is giving us a little better time to make sure we're going to make exactly the right move down there. And we'll be all right. We do this every other weekend, you know, so it's not a big problem.
Gary talked about the lane and the racing conditions on the track. Gary, do you ever think about the competition alongside of you?
Well, we race against each competitor a little different, and I have a game plan in my head here now how to when the light goes green, that our car is as ready as it is to race against Richard Tharp. And we do that a little different against each different competitor. But we're racing against a lot of very great competitors, and so we know we have to make good runs after good runs after good runs. And that's the attitude the racing team tries to take.
Let's go to Steve Evans.
Gary Beck's performance edge has nothing to do with the race car itself. There's at least a dozen of them here, the twin to this machine. The secret is in the fuel system. After hours and hours on a flow bench simulator, Gary has come up with this maze of lines and valves that will put 2.5 gallons of nitromethane through this engine in 5 seconds. Now, they can't really just copy it, the competition, because they don't know how it works, and some of these lines and valves may be here just to keep them guessing, keep them confused. Now, all the horsepower in the world doesn't do you any good if it goes up in tire smoke. So part of Gary's secret is the clutch inside this explosion-proof bell housing. It allows the excess horsepower to go through the clutch and slippage instead of spinning the rear tires. We've removed the transmission so you can see this massive rear end, a bit of off-road technology here, a live axle rear end that has virtually eliminated the tire shake on this automobile. Now, tires, again, part of Beck's secret. He doesn't take any pair. They will go through hundreds of tires to find just exactly the right size, the right width, and that coupled with some special width wheels contribute to this secret. The remainder of it is the man himself. Very few drivers would be capable of operating this car. There are so many bells and whistles and things to do on the way down the racetrack.
Steve, a great look at the inner workings of this man's car. This is Gary Beck, the new Winston World Champion in Top Fuel Eliminator.
And his opponent here in the second round, Richard Tharp, basked in the glory of the World Championship back in 1976 at the wheel of the Candies and Hughes car.
Based out of Dallas, Texas, the Kilpatrick and Cannell team using the same chassis design as is Gary Beck. It's an Al Swindle car, but there's a different approach to the utilization of the fuel systems between these two cars.
Well, if anybody's going to figure out how Gary Beck does it, it'll be that team. They are staged and ready. Richard Tharp in the 4 lane, Gary Beck in the near lane. We've got a race. Gary Beck breaks right on the starting line. Oh, good fortune for Richard Tharp, as he did not have that good a run going. Richard Tharp at 593, 228 miles an hour, and Gary Beck beats himself mechanically.
Very dejected. He sits in the car. This is the quickest top fuel dragster in the history of the sport. The crew and the officials coming to push it off the starting line. Obviously, something letting go in the drivetrain. As we watch again, Richard Tharp in the far lane. They leave almost identically, but then the broken part puts Gary Beck out of competition, and Richard Tharp with an easy run in round number 2 of the 16-car field. The day is over for Gary Beck, but the war has been won. He is the new Winston World Champion.
And we get word from the starting line that Gary Beck broke a transmission. Beck climbing out of the cockpit is all ready. The next race is on the starting line. We saw Ray Stutz, a young fireman from Pomona, making his burnout. Beck with the helmet off. But it's a little different situation, don't you think here, Dave? He's got that World Championship win, not quite as dejected as he might ordinarily be.
If he had not had that, I'm sure he would have been much more concerned about his going out of competition this early. Here is Ray Stutz, who said he is a fireman in Laverne, California. He is racing Joe Amato from Old Forge, Pennsylvania, one of the hottest new drivers on the circuit.
Won 3 events this year. What a contrast here. Both have state-of-the-art race cars, but Ray Stutz, this gentleman in the blue car, is a fireman who works 3 or 4 part-time jobs, saves every penny he can get his hands on to build this car, and has been performing very well, a 560 in round number 1. He has had a little help kind of under the table from Larry Miner and Gary Beck. They really like this young guy. Joe Amato moving in, Ray Stutz, second round. Top Fuel competition, the Winston World Finals. Ray Stutz moves first, but up in smoke. Possibly too much clutch, maybe too much gear, not enough tire, whatever. It is Joe Amato.
And Joe proves that he is in the thick of things with a 5:68 elapsed time at 239 miles an hour, and just overpowering the racetrack is Ray Stutz. The car leaves with the wheels in the air, and then the tires start to smoke, and that's all she wrote for Ray Stutz on this day.
They'll get up on those wheelie bars and kind of unload, as you know, Dave, and transfer the weight to the front end, and the tires go up in smoke. Anytime Gary Beck is out with mechanical problems, you can bet it's going to be a guy like Joe Amato that'll step up and suddenly become a crowd favorite to maybe even win this whole race.
As this crowd is sitting and waiting, coming up out of the staging lanes now are those fiberglass replicas of late model American and foreign cars known as the funny cars. They've got 2,500 horsepower engines in them, and the #1 qualifier is taking on Al Segrini. Segrini driving the Fabergé Super Brute car. Hails from Easton, Massachusetts, and if you ever wanted to have a matchup of East versus West, I guess this is about as far as you could go, because Don Prudhomme hails from Granada Hills.
The four-time world champion, Don Prudhomme, we mentioned earlier, really struggled this year until all of a sudden he stepped up here to qualify #1 at a 5:74. Now, Prudhomme holds the national record at a 5:63, the quickest elapsed time ever run. Al Segrini won the Cajun Nationals this year. The funny car titles were more evenly distributed than was Top Fuel. Quite a few different winners along the trail. But as we told you also, the Chi-Town Hustler is the new world champ, Frank Holley, for the second year in a row. He is out now. We're racing for the event title and some $20,000.
Don Prudhomme at the wheel of the Pepsi Challenger. Approaching those light beams, stretching across the racetrack, and look at Al Segrini with a hole shot.
Al Segrini, and suddenly Al Segrini has problems. The motor lets go, and Don Prudhomme, who was about to throw in the towel, I would imagine, comes up with the win at a 5:89, 240 miles an hour. Look at the hole shot for Segrini.
Boy, Segrini had this race sewed up. He was at least a car length ahead or more at the middle of the track. He starts to smoke a little bit. You can see the piston smoke indicating there are some problems, and the problems gave the win to Don Prudhomme.
Don Prudhomme and Al Segrini discussing reaction times. Segrini's the better of the two. In fact, an outstanding reaction time for Al Segrini.
Our next pair, John Brute Force, and he has been having quite a season. His crew chief, Larry Frazier, has made all the difference in the world for Force. He is gaining confidence in his driving abilities. He has made it to the final round several times this season, has yet to win an NHRA national event. But John Force sitting patiently as the crew completes the work on that 2,500 horsepower nitro-burning engine. The fiberglass body comes down. His competition, Sherm Gunn, already doing his burnout. And John Force rolls through the water, and next you'll see the tires smoking.
John Force has consistently had the best reactions, Dave, all season long of any of the funny car drivers. An occasional red light in there to mar that, but if you're not pushing the light, you don't red light once in a while, maybe you're not on time. John Force.
Sherm Gunn, a chassis builder by trade, built this car specifically for this event. A brand new race car for Sherm Gunn. He qualified well and won his first round race, which probably marked his first ever win in national event competition. The burnouts are over, the engine's running up to par, and now it falls on the drivers.
John Force told me recently, Dave, that he's figured out who his enemy is. It's not the other car, it's not the racetrack, it's the Christmas tree. That is the enemy, Force says.
John Force concentrating on that Christmas tree. For Sherm Gunn, he's doing exactly the same thing in the far lane of the track. And John Force with the hole shot. And he pulls ahead to defeat Sherm Gunn by a little over a car length, a 598 to a 604. And John Force, as we watch it replay, takes home the win.
John Force was 0.03 of a second quicker to react. Here he loses traction, and that's got to be a sinking feeling for the driver. They can feel that happen.
In the shutdown area and going back to the pits for another good hour to hour and a half's worth of work for about 5, almost 6 seconds of time out on the racetrack.
A very intense young man, takes the sport so seriously.
Our next pair of cars, this is a man that also takes it very seriously. but he does it in his own style, in his own method. Little John Lombardo, he hails from North Hollywood, California, and you can tell by the absence of all the sponsors' names on it, he wants Little John to get the recognition, and that's what Little John gets.
Billy Meyer, a full-time pro who first made an impact on this sport right here at Orange County International Raceway when he was only 18 years of age, winning the famous Manufacturers Championship funny car title for 7-Eleven stores, Chief Auto Parts, the Southland Corporation. A good look at the Christmas tree starting system, the top yellow lights of the pre-stage. When all 4 top yellow lights are on, we get the pro start, 4/10 of a second between amber and green. Billy Meyer with the wheels in the air. Little John Lombardo, Little John goes farther in national event competition than I can ever recall.
Stevie ran 5.93 seconds to go into the semifinals, defeating a 5.99 by Billy Meyer in the 7-Eleven Chief Auto Parts Special. And for Little John, this is somewhat unusual. Our next pair already fired, doing the burnout on the far side of the track is Denny Savage, and here comes the 3-time Winston World Champion, the Schlitz Blue Max of Raymond Beadle.
Well, a lot of people were a little worried about Raymond Beadle this year because he has branched out into other forms of motor racing. Sammy Swindell on the Worlds of Outlaw Sprint Car Circuit, a NASCAR car. Denny Savage, who has been out of drag racing 2 years, only hired last weekend to drive this custom-bodied car, and to qualify here under those circumstances, quite a triumph for Denny Savage, a real veteran of this sport.
Savage defeated Gary Densham in round number 1 to place him up against Raymond Beadle. Beadle qualified number 4 with an outstanding 581. And so the Schlitz Blue Max out of Dallas, Texas, is striving to move into the semifinals, but Denny Savage is not to be forgotten in this race.
Oh, he certainly is not. Ron Swearingen, the young man, only 23 in the red shirt there, kind of listen to that motor to make sure it's got enough heat in it where it respond to Savage's touch on the throttle. Raymond Beadle, the Spring Nationals champion this year, the Schlitz Blue Max. Beadle, no better driver, no calmer driver, certainly. Ice water for blood. Denny Savage, an excitable type sometimes. They get away pretty close together.
Savage had the hole shot by 100th of a second, and look at him hold on, and in fact he pulls away at the finish line. You talk about upsets. Denny Savage just laid away the Schlitz Blue Max. As we watch again, you see the very slight advantage off the starting line. It couples up with a 5.93 elapsed time. Beadle actually has a lead at this point by about a half a car length. But look at Denny Savage, his speed 242 miles an hour as he crosses the finish line at the end of the quarter mile, 1,320 feet away from the starting line. Raymond Beadle takes off his helmet and fire sock.
Denny Savage, a long-time professional driver in this sport who just took over the reins of this race car, and you find yourself in the semis. You've really struggled in qualifying. Did your wildest dreams for you to get this far?
No, I really did. I really did. But, you know, we're there, so what can I say?
Okay, good luck with this car.
So the crew coming to congratulate Denny Savage driving Fred Castronova's car. Raymond Beadle out of competition as we will be moving shortly to the semifinals of Funny Car Eliminator, where John Force will be running Don Prudhomme and Little John Lombardo will run Denny Savage. Earlier in funny car qualifying, we had one of the most spectacular engine explosions ever in drag racing history as Mike Dunn at the wheel of Roland Leong's Hawaiian Punch Special approached the finish line, and then it let go.
It's with great pleasure I stand next to a hale and apparently healthy Mike Dunn. You okay?
Oh, yeah, I'm all right. Just got a sprained left index finger and my knee's a little sore, but other than that, I'm fine.
You had no warning at all.
No, the car was running real well. We had changed, actually we changed the piston. We went to higher compression. We were just trying things, and it left real lazy, and then half track it really started to make a charge, so I thought I'd run her down there and see what it'd run. And I laid down just for an instant and then blew up. I didn't really have time to react, and it immediately put oil on my visor, and I couldn't see, and I just reacted to the way the car went.
You appeared to be trying to drive it until it rolled.
Well, actually, what had happened is I was worried about getting into Al Segrini's lane, the guy, person we were racing, and that was my main concern at first. And so, being that I couldn't see, I was just reacting. I was actually probably overcorrecting for the way the car moved, just so that I didn't want to get into his lane. And evidently, what had happened is the motor went over on top of the fuel tank and then went off the side of the tire, and that's what rolled me. I thought I'd went off the side of the track and hit something, and that's what rolled me, because it wasn't really that far out of control at that time.
And on the first roll, the roll bar hit as hard as it possibly could have.
Oh, yeah, it definitely hit hard. Luckily, nobody home up there, so it didn't hurt me up there any.
It says an awful lot for the men that make the rules.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm living proof of how safe these things are, you know. Just take a look at all my reruns, right? And you can't say enough about the safety features of the car, the roll cage, full roll cage, and everything else. Any type car, something like that, crash like that, the driver would be lucky to walk away with it. And I've done it, you know, twice, so they're definitely safe.
So we'll see Mike Dunn next season?
Oh, definitely.
Not only a tribute to the rules makers, but also a tribute to the men who drive those 250-mile-an-hour funny cars. One of the most popular of all drag racing categories is Pro Stock, the factory hot rods.
And this is the semifinals. In the near lane, the famed Grumpy's Toy, a Bill Grumpy Jenkins from Pennsylvania with Joe Lapone driving. Lapone, an athletic, tall, good-looking young guy who announced today he is retiring from this car. No further news on his plans for the future. Lee Shepard, the world champion. He won it earlier when Frank Iaconio went out in the first round of competition. That will be the second consecutive world championship for the rear end. Morrison Camaro. What a matchup of beautiful Camaro automobiles, Dave McClellan.
Certainly is, and this could be called the Battle of the Makes, this entire Pro Stock category. Here we have a pair of Chevrolets, Lapone and Bill Jenkins' car, but it's Lee Shepard pulling out the win by about a fender length at the finish line. Lee Shepard recording an elapsed time of 7:69 at over 177 miles an hour, and bear in mind they're running on carburetors and gasoline.
2,350 pounds, 500 cubic inches maximum. The beautiful new Hearst Oldsmobile of Warren Johnson. Warren won the event title here a year ago in a different model of an Oldsmobile. This car that appears to be very bulky actually is very quick. Bob Glidden, what can you say? The 5-time world champion, the 83 Ford Thunderbird that finally has a new aftermarket aluminum motor in it. They were handicapped with almost a 20-year-old power plant the first part of the season. They've got it worked out now. This should be quite a race. Oldsmobile versus Ford. They bring these RPMs up to almost 9,000, Dave.
And you can hear him climb to the moon, and it is Warren Johnson with the hole shot. And I don't think anybody expected that, because Bob Glidden has been improving all season long, and at the finish line, that advantage pays off, and Warren Johnson wins it.
Oh, Warren Johnson, what a driving job. 771 at 178 miles an hour. As we look at it again, you see Warren react first. Glidden's car goes much higher in the air than he would have liked. Glidden still, however, ran a quicker elapsed time at 7.66 seconds, 180 miles an hour. So 500ths difference in the elapsed time. The slower of the two cars wins it. Here in the near lane, they don't get much closer than this.
That sets up an Oldsmobile versus Chevrolet final as the two wives, Warren Johnson's wife and Etta Glidden, Bob Glidden's wife, arm in arm as they go off the racetrack, and the bodies come down on our funny cars as we get set to go into the semifinal round of competition.
It'll be John Brute Force in the Tower Lane, a native Californian, a former truck driver who about 10 years ago decided he wanted to make his living in this sport, and it has been not easy for John. He has really struggled, gone through an awful lot of equipment. A good businessman, as you can see by all of the logos and sponsors on his race car, and he's finally got the performance to back it all up.
He'll need it because he has to race the #1 qualifier, the 4-time Winston World Champion in the Pepsi Challenger, Don the Snake Prudhomme.
Prudhomme is only...
And Don's got something coming out of the car. You can see there is fluid, liquid of all types coming out. He quickly shuts it off, and the car is on fire. It is the nitromethane fuel, apparently a fuel line split. Prudhomme comes out of the car, crawls away on his hands and knees, and Bob Brandt, his crew chief, quickly hitting it with a fire extinguisher. They back the car up, and no damage to either the car or Don Prudhomme, but what a break for John Force.
Oh, John Force in the far lane will waltz his way into the final round. And Force smokes the tires. It's a good thing he had no opponent, David. He'd have been in real trouble. He'd have probably been defeated.
He'd have been watching Don Prudhomme streaking away in that Pepsi Challenger, but instead Don Prudhomme being pushed back to the pits, the fuel line letting go, and a dejected driver is the man who watched the body come up, and he exited quickly as the fuel started pouring out, hitting the red-hot headers and bursting into flames as Prudhomme himself shuts the engine off and immediately exits the car.
And the first to react here is his crew chief, Bob Brandt, who knows that there is always a fire extinguisher sitting right on that starting line. The emergency trucks, the way they are placed, it would have taken them another 20 or 30 seconds to get here, and by that time there might have been an inferno had Bob Brandt not reacted so quickly.
The remaining pair in the semifinal round, Denny Savage at the wheel of the Custom Body Enterprises car of Fred Castronova. As we've told you, Savage in this car for the first time driving this race.
And little John Lombardo has an opportunity here to make his first ever final round. He qualified #1 at the Southern Nationals earlier this year, but has never made it as far as the finals. Little John Lombardo is away first. Savage pulls up even. It is gonna be little John Lombardo by a little over a car length. Pat Galvin celebrating, the crew chief along with Donnie Couch as they head for the truck. Little John from North Hollywood makes his first final.
A fine time for little John Lombardo at 5.90. He figured out what has become a relatively tricky racetrack. Earlier today, Steve had a chance to visit Shirley Muldowney in her pit area.
As these top fuel dragsters have become more sophisticated, their crews have become more specialized. In the case of Shirley Muldowney's team, it is Ron Tobler who makes the major decisions as far as tuning the car is concerned, but he still has to get deep into the toolbox. He is ably assisted by Shirley's son, John Muldowney, who generally is responsible for the clutch in the automobile, a very important component. Other crew members will do the diving, as they call it, going underneath, taking off the oil pan, checking the bearing and the crankshafts. Ron has also got to be a little bit weatherman and keep an eye on the air density and the temperature and the actual altitude as indicated by his gauges, because all that affects his tuning of the race car.
Shirley Muldowney now in the semifinal round of Top Fuel to be racing Richard Tharp.
Shirley's performance today particularly impressive when you consider what happened to her at this year's U.S. Nationals on a qualifying run. The wheel came off the car, the left front wheel, and she made serious contact with the guardrail, bouncing to a stop. Shirley was unhurt, but the race car took a vicious blow. So the car she is driving today is the same machine that carried her to the 1982 World Championship. It came out of mothballs. They put a new wing on it with the #1, and here they are in the semifinals against Richard Tharp.
Steve, this is quite a personality battle, too. Not only is it who's got the better car, but who is the better driver.
Richard Tharp's car a little lazy off the starting line. Shirley Muldowney comes out of the tire smoke quickly. Shirley Muldowney goes into the finals at a 5.88 at 240 miles an hour.
Steve, that was one tremendous driving job by Shirley Muldowney as she has now earned her way to the finals of this Winston World Championship. Let's watch. Richard Tharp just a little slow off the starting line. Then here comes the smoke, and that indicates the tires are loose. They have broken traction. She's spinning them, but she recovers quickly and easily pulls ahead to defeat Tharp.
And this is the first time that Shirley Muldowney has driven what they call a Crower glide type of clutch. She's had a pedal clutch, or as she calls it, a stick shift, all season long. So what a tribute to this young lady to adapt that quickly to a new mechanical combination. Who is Shirley going to race in the final? Will it be the man in the near lane, Joe Amato, who has won 3 races this year? Or will it be Gene Snow, who is yet to win his first Top Fuel title after the funny car glory he enjoyed a decade ago?
Gene Snow dropped out of drag racing for several years and formed a company, and you see it proudly displayed on the side of that black gold entry, and it's called Snow Oil Company. That may well be why he doesn't go out and look for other sponsors. For Joe Amato, he is sponsored by Hearst and his own Performance Warehouse Distribution Company, Keystone Automotive. Joe Amato and Gene Snow as we get set for the final round of semifinal action. One of the two will advance to meet Shirley.
What a contrast in personalities, the soft-spoken, slow-walking Texan Gene Snow. And Joe Amato, very animated, talks with his hands. There's no punctuation in his sentences. The one thing they have in common, they're very well-liked and respected in this sport. Two of the real good guys.
And they are both very exceptional race car drivers.
Now, Amato has had the consistency mechanically all year long. Has not been first off the mark very often, but has never red-lighted either. Gene Snow, reaction's good. Motor has been a problem.
The green light comes on for both cars, and Joe Amato pulls to an early lead. And he continues to extend it through the finish line, and Joe Amato wins to earn his right in the finals, 5.70 seconds to a losing 5.85 for Gene Snow. So it'll be Joe Amato, as we see here in the near lane, defeating Gene Snow in this semifinal round.
And Dave Watcher, he will smoke the tires almost exactly where Shirley Muldowney did. But Joe Amato backpedaled as Shirley did, got the traction again, and defeats Gene Snow.
And Joe Amato gets the lane choice with a 5.70 elapsed time here, defeating Gene Snow. Shirley's best in the semis, a 5.88.
And back in the pit area, Shirley Muldowney's crew is thrashing, and they tell me they have decided to change transmissions in this car, to go to a lower gear ratio transmission. In fact, they're borrowing one from Dwight Salisbury. to try to prevent that smoking the tires in the final round. Little bit of a gamble here, David.
You can see, Steve, all of the work that goes on. Literally, they disassemble the engine, practically the entire drivetrain if need be, and put it all back together in roughly an hour and a half.
So Ron Tobler and John Muldowney have got their hands full, I'm sure. A similar thrash going on over in Joe Amato's pit area as they prepare for the finals. But right now it's pro stock time.
It is the battle of the factories. Warren Johnson at the wheel of the Hearst Oldsmobile. Finished number 3 in the world last season.
Warren Johnson raced for many years out of Fridley, Minnesota, but now he's picking up a southern accent out of Duluth, Georgia.
And somebody with a southern accent is the Winston World Champion, and that is Lee Shepard driving the Rare and Morrison Camaro out of Arlington, Texas. So we've got the battle, the Chevrolet of Lee Shepard, wearing number 1, indicating he is the reigning world champion, and he has won it for the 2nd year in a row against Warren Johnson, number 3 last season.
I wonder sometimes if a driver like Shepard, who doesn't have to work on the car and worry about the motor, doesn't have an edge. Warren Johnson looking for 2 consecutive event titles here at the World Finals. What a final this is shaping up to be. Half track, dead even. 3/4 track, dead even. Warren Johnson.
What a driving job by Warren Johnson. His crew and his wife happy over the big victory over Lee Shepard. A 300th of a second hole shot at the starting line, and that paid off for Warren Johnson as Lee Shepard actually ran quicker. The 2 lanes are timed separately. They're like 2 separate racetracks. And Warren Johnson leaving first and getting to the finish line first by just a bumper length over Lee Shepard.
And here you see why they use a computer electronic finish line judge. Huh, how would you like to try to call that with a naked eye at 180 miles an hour? Warren Johnson wins the event title for the 2nd year in a row.
Certainly holding his emotions in check at the shutdown area as we get set for the funny cars, and here is John Force.
Neither of our funny car finalists have ever been in the NHRA Championship winner's circle. Not little John Lombardo here with the body being latched down, nor John Brute Force.
Little John Lombardo has been racing in Southern California for nearly 2 decades. He is primarily a Southern California racer. He selects events out of the state to go to, but John Lombardo has his first shot ever at winning an NHRA national event.
Now, John Force has been in 3 finals over his 10-year career, but is yet to get the win light in that final sprint.
The burnouts are over. All the work is completed. The crews directing their drivers up to that starting line marked by the yellow stripe across this very sticky asphalt. Little John Lombardo in the far lane, John Force in the near lane, and staging very carefully into those light beams. Both drivers set, and an advantage for Force, and he goes up in smoke. Now Little John goes up in smoke. It's a race to the finish line, and it is Little John Lombardo pulling it out. A tremendous race. Only a 6:32 for each driver, but times don't count. It's who gets to the finish line first.
And it still takes a driver in one of these cars, no matter how sophisticated they get. They leave right together. Force in the near lane will be the first to lose traction. There, too much power for this racetrack. Right now, Force feels, I've lost.
But Little John Lombardo goes up in smoke. He recovers and pulls out by 1 car length the victory over John Force.
Little John Lombardo, a mainstay here at Orange County International Raceway, only makes 2 or 3 of the national events out of state. Lombardo, even he has got to be excited.
Little John Lombardo, the winner of the funny car title here at Orange County, the first ever national event win. This lady has seen a lot of them. She has got 3 Winston World Championships to her credit. This will be the last race. She bears the big number 1 on the wing, the reigning Winston World Champion, Shirley Muldowney.
For Shirley Muldowney, it would be a very appropriate win here as the movie of her life story, Heart Like a Wheel, being released all over the country to rave reviews or even talking Academy Awards. But this guy would like to spoil that moment for her if he possibly can and tie about 4 drivers ever who have won 4 national events in a season, Shirley and Gary Beck among them.
Steve, they seem to be having some problems with Joe Amato's car. Shirley is running. She has done her burnout, and Joe Amato sitting patiently while the crew comes over.
It's going to be a single, I believe, for Shirley Muldowney, Dave.
It looks like it may be, as Joe Amato having problems in the final, and Shirley Muldowney.
Hold it, they're going to start Amato's car.
They're trying very hard. They squirted the gasoline and the engine is running, and Joe waves the Diamond P Sports cameraman out of the way.
And look at this, Shirley Muldowney is waiting for him. Son John looking over saying, easy, Mom, trying to communicate with her what's going on. Joe Amato will not get a full burnout, though. Amato at least is able to spin the tires towards the starting line.
You remember it was in the first round that Bill Carter had the same problem. He got started very late. He fared very well with the traction, but the track has changed considerably since then.
You know who else has been a good sport here? Joe Amato. He could get a quick little squirt, as they call it, up to the starting line to simulate a burnout, but he's worried right now that he's already inconvenienced Shirley Muldowney. That's the way Amato thinks. A true sportsman.
We do have a race for the final. Joe Amato in the near lane. In the far lane, the three-time world champion, Shirley Muldowney. She's going for the event win. Joe Amato wants to stop her, and Amato out first, but he smokes the tires, and Shirley Muldowney has won the 19th annual Winston World Championship.
In a year-old race car with a clutch she's never used before. They changed the transmissions, had everything going against her coming into this race, but she pulls it off. Shirley Muldowney, the pink car in the 4 lane. Amato, without the burnout, there just was not enough traction. As the day has cooled off, the temperatures dropped some 10 degrees, and the crowd loves Shirley in winner's circle again.
That's it from the World Finals. This is Dave McClellan for Steve Evans saying so long for now. This has been a Diamond P Sports presentation.